Uh, this week, it's a quote unquote short week, so we're not going to have time to do everything. I'd like to start with today we'll do the Sotah woman. That's chapter 5, verse 11, Parashas Nassoh. So, Vayidaber Hashem Moshe Lemor. Daber b'nei Yisrael, says the verse, chapter 5, verse 12. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, Ish ki tisteh ishto, if there will be a man whose wife will go astray, and she will commit the word me'ilah in the Torah can mean like a trespass, like you misappropriate temple property, but it's a violation where you cross over a boundary. So she goes astray and she commits a trespass. So it's a strange, who am I to say strange, but it doesn't say, the verse doesn't just say a woman who commits adultery. It says ish, a man. Because the whole Sotah passage is on what goes on with the man vis-a-vis the woman. So a man whose wife goes astray, who commits a trespass. That's the text. So Rashi in these parashos in Bamidbar always likes to connect from one paragraph to the previous one, because otherwise we're left wondering what's the connection here between all these paragraphs. So Rashi says that the previous paragraph is referring to misappropriation of temple property, and you don't give the gifts to the Kohen. So ma kasuv l'ma'ala mina inyan. What is written above in this topic? It says v'ishas kadashav lo yiyu. It says a man's holies shall be his, meaning to say, it says in the verse, and what a man gives to the Kohen shall be his, meaning to say, if you give it to, grab a chumash, my friend Avi. So basically, you're not allowed to misappropriate temple property. If you withhold the gifts of the Kohen, I swear by your life, says the Torah, here, come, why so far away, Avi? Come close. You'll need to come to the Kohen and bring him the Sotah. So right away, the text tells us, why is it, we're in chapter 5, verse 11. Why is it verse 12? Why is it the case that this passage of a Sotah follows the passage of somebody who withholds the gifts to the Kohen? And Rashi tells us it's because at the result of the Sotah passages, you have to come to the Kohen and ask the Kohen to decide and go put the woman who's accused through an ordeal. So you're going to need the Kohen's help. So if you think I don't need the Kohen, then God is going to make it that you do need the Kohen. That's the concept. If you think you don't need the Kohen, but God's going to make it you do need the Kohen. Also, yeah. That's what he's thinking to himself. Right. Yeah, but it's actually, I was also thinking something else, that on Shavuos night, we had such a lebedik night. Avi was here with his policy, with his friends who studied Torah here, and I think Adam was the one who shared the Dvar Torah about Lashon Hara, and he said that when you accuse somebody of something else, when he said that the studies show when you gossip about someone, the person who you gossip to often ends up associating you with those character traits. Like, let's say you're saying, oh, this person is a thief. You say to Reuben, Shimon's a thief. Well, Reuben's going to think you're a thief. He's going to associate you with being a thief. That's what Adam said. He found those, and he had some sources to support that. But the idea here is, if you basically are somebody who doesn't treat the Kohen with loyalty, your wife won't treat you with loyalty. If you're a person who himself doesn't practice loyalty, and people won't practice loyalty as it relates to their relationships with you. So that's the unfortunate reality of life. that the behavior you practice is often doubles back upon you. Not always, but that's what this concept is, right? Very nice. So then it says, ish, any man. Why is it repeated? Why is it repeated? The word ish. Why is it repeated here? To tell you, hold on, we are joined by Rabbi Yosef. L'lamedcha shemoelas bishnayim b'ish milchama shamala v'isha milmata. That is telling you that she is committing a violation against two. She's committing the violation against ish milchama and isha milamata. So who's ish milchama? Who is the man of war? Who's that a reference to? God. God is called ish, and her husband is called ish. So a woman who commits adultery is committing a sin against God and a sin against man. And that's important because adultery is a sin not just against man, but also a sin against God. If it would be a sin against man, then you could argue that man has the right to waive any sin against him. You can waive a sin against, you can waive your honor. You say, okay, you just you insult me, fine, it's my honor, I waive it. But a sin against God, that you don't have the right to waive. And so therefore, that's what Rashi's point is, that this is a sin against man and God. Ki tisteh ishto. You had a question, Nathan?
I just want to say that this when going to war, it's that sins against God are forgiven sort of automatically. God automatically forgives sins against in my own Kippur, but sins against other people, we have to actively ask them for forgiveness. That's an active process.
Very nice. So, but that's a very, very good point, Nathan. And this is almost like the opposite of that. Here we're saying, yeah, very nice. Here we're saying sins against man can be forgiven, but a sin against God, you can't waive that. You can't waive that. So then it says, Ki tisteh ishto, if his wife will go astray. Say our rabbis, Ein hamina afin, no afin, ad shetikinais ben ruach shtus. When the adulterers commit adultery, they do it when a spirit of foolishness encounters them. As it states, ki tisteh, if she will act foolishly. The word like tisteh, tishteh. It says in normal you would read it as tisteh, but here we read it as tishteh, like a shoteh. So meaning to say ki tishteh. It's written with a shin, but we read it with a sin. We read it as go astray, but it could be written as shtut, as nonsense. Ki tishteh. V'katuv bo, and about him it's written noef asher chasar leiv. Somebody who commits adultery with a woman lacks sense. And the meaning of that is ki tisteh. What is the simple meaning of the verse? Upshuto shel mikra ki tisteh. Tate midarkei sniut. She went away from the ways of modesty. She veered. V'techoshed beinav, and she became suspicious in her husband's eyes. Like stay me'alav va'avor. Turn away from it and pass by. Al yeist el deracheha libecha. Do not let your heart stray toward her ways. So basically, Rashi has cited two verses from Proverbs, and they're the only other times that the word tisteh appears in the Bible. So she's committed a
seven of Proverbs is all about the illicit relationships between men and women. He talks about choosing her instead of the chokhmah, if I remember correctly.
Okay, Yashikov. Thank you, Rabbi Yosef. Thank you very, very much. You don't have to remember. You could just look it up on the Sefaria. It's chapter 7, verse 25, and chapter 4, verse 15. From Proverbs. Okay, Umala vo ma'al, and the verse says, that he committed a trespass, and she committed a trespass. Mahu amal, what is this trespass? That we're suspicious, we're suspicious that she's committed adultery. We don't know for sure. We know that we suspected. We suspected a man is laying with her. Shechvas zera. But this is carnally. V'ne'elam meinei isha, and her husband is unaware. V'nistarahi nitma, v'hi nitma, and she's secluded, and she's defiled. V'edein ba v'hi lo nitfasa, and there's no witness, and she was not seized. She has not been seized. Meaning to say, what's going on here? We don't know exactly what she's done. Let's see how Rashi translates this verse, because in the text it sounds like she's committed adultery, but we don't have any evidence of it. But Rabbi's understanding of this means that the rabbinic understanding is that she became secluded with the man after her husband warned her against it, and we don't know if she committed adultery. But here it says she committed adultery, she just was not caught yet. So let's see what the Rashi says. Did you ever find your Gemara, Sam?
I did, yeah.
Where was it?
It's upstairs on the shelf upstairs.
Baruch Hashem. Missing your Gemara is like if you have, like when you're a little baby, you have a security blanket, you can't go anywhere without it. That's what's like without a Gemara. If I lost my Gemara, I would cry.
Yeah.
So I understand the passion that you have for it. So we're chapter 5, verse 13. We're trying to understand this verse. V'shachab ishotah. So Rashi says, if a man lies with her, this excludes a minor or misha eno ish. This excludes if she commits adultery with a minor or if somebody who is not a man, i.e. with an animal. Not with a woman. A woman wouldn't be considered adultery, but with an animal, you might think a male animal that she's in violation. Okay, we don't need to get graphic there, but we figure it out. So it says, V'shachab ish otah, her. So what does this mean? So okay, we're about to hear about a double standard. It says V'shachav ishotah shchivata poselotata. If the woman commits adultery, she's prohibited to be with her husband. She's not allowed to be with her husband anymore when she commits adultery. But let's say he commits adultery with her sister, then he's still allowed to be with her. So it's a double standard. But okay, if you haven't figured that out in our faith yet, then you're a little late to the game. Sorry, I mean, I'm not making a joke of it. I'm just saying, I don't know how to sugarcoat that reality that there's a double standard and for much of human history, there's been a double standard between man and women. That's just a sad reality of life. And it still exists in life too, to this day, that there's a double standard. But we have to strive ourselves not to get caught up in that, obviously. And her husband is unaware. So what does this mean? Prat l'sumad. This excludes a blind man. The laws of this Sotah only apply when the man has sight, but if he's blind, it doesn't apply. But if he could see, and he was suppressing it, so then we see these waters, these bitter waters that we're about to use, they don't work if the husband saw and he was claiming he didn't see. So then the bitter waters don't work. We're going to see a lot of circumstances where the bitter waters don't work. So then it says, Vinistera, she became secluded. Shiur shetera'el tumat biyah. How long was she secluded for? She has to be secluded for the amount of time it takes to commit adultery. The aid aim ba, and there's no witness. So if there's a witness, even one witness who said she was defiled, when does she drink these bitter waters? Only if there's no witness. But if there's even one witness, then she wouldn't drink. Okay, the Torah's legal process here is actually in Middle Ages they used to do this type of law. Do you know what it was called in the Middle Ages when they used to do this type of law? You know what it's called? Type of legal process? Jeff knows.
Wraps down the person.
No, but they have a name for it. It's called an ordeal. They would put people through an ordeal. Like if they wanted to know if the person was innocent or guilty, they would throw them into the water. They would tie them up with rope and stones and throw them into the water. And if they sank, that meant that they were innocent. And if they drowned, they were innocent. If they didn't sink, that meant that they were guilty. And if they were sinking, you had to go in and hopefully save them before you got to them. But
Very fair procedure.
what?
Not a very fair procedure.
But it's an ordeal. The idea is that God was deciding the test. And it's the same thing in this process. This is called an ordeal, that the bitter waters are testing. It's the only time that we have this type of judicial proceeding in the Torah. Everything else is two witnesses. Everything else is evidence-based. This is the only time where if there's any evidence, it doesn't work. If there's even one evidence who says she was defiled, then we wouldn't give her the bitter waters to drink. The bitter waters only work if there's zero evidence whatsoever. Also, the rabbis in the Talmud said we just stopped doing the bitter waters completely now, because once there became so much promiscuity in the world, we stopped doing the bitter waters. Yes, Aviva, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
So it's only if the husband had, maintained that she had been,
Adulterous?
yeah, I mean, what you said is there's no witnesses.
So what happened was there's no witnesses to her defilement, but there were witnesses to the seclusion. Witnesses to that she was warned not to be secluded with this man. And then there are witnesses that she was secluded. So then we would give her these bitter waters to drink. Ve'edem ba betuma. This is exactly what the text says. And the next Rashi says, there's no witness with her respect to her defilement, but there are witnesses with respect to her seclusion. That this is what's called yichud. She was secluded with a man who her husband specifically warned her that she's not allowed to be secluded with. So then under those circumstances, v'hilo nitpasa, and she was not seized. Meaning, what does this mean? Ne'ansa, she was not forced. Kamo utefasa v'shachavima. He seized her and lay with her. So she was there on her own. She was not forced. If she's forced, obviously, you say, obviously today we're not going to hold her responsible, but you could imagine that even in the modern period, if there was, even in Viva's from England, but even pre-war England, if there was a woman who became pregnant through assault, they would send her away. They would view her as the guilty party. And they would send her to a nunnery, and nobody would marry her. So here, this text is saying, no, that she's only considered to be adulterous if she was willing. But if she was forced, then it's not considered adultery. You might think, oh, that's obvious. No, that's not obvious. For much of human history, that wasn't obvious. So then it states, "Va'avaro of ruach kinah." So the man, no witnesses to this. And he has a spirit of Va'avaro of ruach kinah. Rashi, we have to read this verse. The only way to make sense of it, Rashi says this: we go back kodem lastira, before the seclusion. He became jealous before she was secluded. V'kineas ishto, and he warned his wife prior to. This verse actually goes back to the very beginning of this passage here of the law here. First, he warns her. Then first he has this spirit of jealousy. He's suspicious of her with this man, and he warns her not to be with the man. And then after he warns her in front of witnesses, she's secluded with the man. That's what it's referring to. Then he's going to take her to the to give her this test. And then she had become defiled. Well, let's see what Rashi says that means. Meaning to say, Rashi says it doesn't mean what it says it means. Rashi is going to say it means he warned her, and after he warned her, he's not sure if she committed the defilement. He's not sure. Hello, good afternoon, Barbara. He's not sure if she committed the adultery or not. So he has the spirit of jealousy, and he warns her. This is called kinei. Kodem listira ruach kina, the spirit of jealousy. Lashon hasra, warning. Shemasreba al tisteri mishponi. He warns her, do not become secluded with so-and-so. And he warns her and she violates his warning, and we don't know what happened as a result of this warning. He warns her she's not allowed to be with this man. She was with that man in a secluded place, and we don't know if in that place she committed adultery or she was just, reading the newspaper in that room. We don't know what she did. So therefore, that's why we have to go through this process known as an ordeal. Do you ever read any books about an ordeal, Nathan?
I have,
What do you remember what you read?
well, I'm just thinking, I've read books about the Soviet Jewry movement.
No, I mean specific, well, those are powerful books, but I mean specifically about the medieval ritual called an ordeal. The person was punished. Yeah. I was discussing, I think you missed it. But when
I don't think I've read books specifically about that, but it sounds very interesting.
yeah, I think you have. Yeah, where did you read about it?
So they used to put women in particular in a bag with rocks,
Right.
dump it in the water, and if she lived,
I mean, she was guilty.
she was guilty.
Right. Yeah. So that's how they did it for much of human history. That's how they, and it wasn't just women, to be fair.
That's right.
So it was.
One way or the other.
It was anybody who came to the person for justice and they didn't know how to decide. So they said, "We'll go through an ordeal and let the supernatural decide." These were people of tremendous faith, and they let the supernatural decide. Of course, can also be misused by the cynical. Yes, Aviva.
Weighted, so to speak, against the person.
Yeah,
They said it was let the divine presence decide, but
right.
everything was weighted, so.
Right, it wasn't, you weren't playing with a fair field when you're being thrown into the river with stones weighing you down, and who knows if you even know how to swim. So, okay, so then what happens is verse 15, Ve'evi ha'ishas ishto, a man brings his wife to the Kohen, Ve'evias karbana aleh, and he brings a sacrifice for her. Asirita ifa kemach sa'orim. He brings barley offering. This is the only time, aside from the Omer offering, that there's a meal offering of barley in the temple. Excuse me. Lo yitzokol of shemen, should not pour oil over it. Lo yiteno el levona, no frankincense. Kiminchat kinaot hu. It is a offering of jealousy. Minchat zikaron maskeret avon. It's an offering of remembrance, a reminder of iniquity. It's so sad, but
What does iniquity mean?
iniquity means sin. That it's offering to remind us of the sin, that there's a sin being committed. Now, there's for sure been a sin committed. Question is, did she commit the sin or did her husband commit the sin? And that there's a terrible, but some have argued, we're not going to have time today to finish the whole passage, so we'll get to it tomorrow. But some have argued that this whole process was actually a way of restoring the marriage, because the husband has warned her she's not allowed to be secluded with this man. She went and became secluded, but now the husband can't take her back. She defied him, but maybe she did it innocently. So she goes and is tested, and if she passes the test, then of course she's innocent and he can take her back. So some have suggested that this whole process was a way of saving the marriage. Some of the rabbinic commentaries say that. Barbara does not accept that theory. Barbara's not shy with her opinion.
We're
but
still
she
learning
rejects-
that Masechet with Benedict, so
Yeah.
Oh, no offense, there's no
in
discussion.
our understanding.
There's no discussion here of dumping her in the water. So
No.
That's.
No, here she drinks the bitter water.
Exactly. So-
And if she is, the Talmud says,
Right.
and they mixed all sorts of stuff into those bitter waters. So presumably if she was guilty,
Somatic, right.
no, but no. Let's just say, when the Kohen is out there mixing stuff in, you don't know what he's mixing in. Like before you take a colonoscopy, you know what they mix into that
I don't.
potion? Yeah, you've never taken a colonoscopy?
Right.
Yeah, they put all sorts of stuff in and everything's coming out. So who knows what she's going to, and they say that her body starts throwing things up. So
Leave it. really believe in it, psychosomatically could cause you to die. Who knows what could happen? So there's no mystery. It's if she really believes that she's gonna die, the result because she's guilty,
Yeah, she,
then she'll die.
not only that,
She won't die.
Jeff, not only that, the Talmud tells us, just even imagine what it must be like for her. This woman was brought in front of thousands of people. Like she's brought into the courtyard of the temple. Everybody's sitting there jeering, screaming. It's a mob. And they rip her clothes and make her undressed. They make her undressed
In front of everyone?
in front of everyone. Except they put some of the Kohanim, there's a debate whether the young Kohanim are allowed to be there or not. But they expose her in front of everyone. And in that context, she has to drink these bitter waters. And you can imagine how traumatic that would be. Whether or not
Rabbi?
it's a psychosomatic reaction, yes.
We actually went through this in great detail with Benedict and came to a question of whether, first of all, whether there's any archaeological evidence that has ever happened. And there was a point where a woman could decide not to go through this and give up her ketubah rather than do this. So there's still some out there's
Yeah.
and
There's some way she can get out of it. Also, the husband could decide to divorce her and not go through this also. I mean, they didn't have to do it. But the point is just say, oh, just give up her ketubah. But that's like giving up her all of her money. I mean, that's
but rather than go through what you just described, I'd give up.
I understand. I'm not her lawyer giving her advice. I'm just saying that it's not a simple choice, is all I was saying. Just to give up just give up.
But it was there. It was there for a reason. And we also talked about how this whole thing is concocted to save the man's pride, to save the
That's what I was
husband's pride.
suggesting a second
And
ago.
also to make sure that his jealousy doesn't get the better of him and he hurts her.
That's also possible. By the way, there is evidence in the Talmud. The Talmud talks about cases of an actual Sotah. The Talmud does talk about that in Tractate Sotah. But wait, it's just
There's
say-
evidence. There's archaeological evidence for it.
no archaeological evidence. There's no archaeological evidence that I'm aware of. But but maybe there is historical evidence in the Talmud and maybe in Josephus. We'd have to check.
Maybe.
But Barbara, you want to say something before we stop? Yes, Barbara.
Supposing the husband decided to